Hi everyone, this is Jesi from Literary Gladiators, and today I'll be talking about the series A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, better known as A Game of Thrones. I have a lot to say about this series, and the reason why I'm doing the entire series is because everything just intertwines. And you really can't, I feel like you can't do one book at a time, review and discussion. You just can't. There's way too much that you miss if you just do one at a time. And just overall the story, everything is important. And I had to take a lot of notes for this, so bear with me, guys. I'm going to start with my basic review of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, and where to begin with these books. Overall, I have to say that I loved all the books altogether, no matter which ones I liked better or worse. With my 2017 top 10 books, I did rank them. However, overall, they're all a fantastic series when put together. They were just amazing, and George R.R. Martin really immerses you into his world that he created, and every sentence adds a little bit more detail to the worlds, and it's every detail you need. And I think that's what I like. I love details in general, and just reading with his style of writing just really captures you, embraces you, and drags you into Westeros and Essos, and it's just wonderful. You really get lost in this continent, this fictional continent, and you want so badly to see everything too. The way he describes what he or what he makes up and what he sees in his mind, really you want to see it. And I think that's why the show really went off as wonderfully as it did, even though some people didn't read the books. You didn't have to. It's this whole new world, and you want to see everything. I mean, can you really imagine a wall of ice that's 700 feet high? Like, just picturing it in your mind, you want to see it. You want to go there, and you want to live the way they do. You want to go to the sands of Dorne. You want to see the deserts. You want to see the ships and the narrow sea and King's Landing, and just everything that he describes in incredible detail. He also really puts you in the mood by describing the music, by describing the sense. You can smell what he's telling you about. And as we'll get to a little bit later, he really goes quite in depth with the dishes that they eat there in the different parts of the continent. So we'll touch on that a little bit more later, because I did go ahead and make some dishes. So we'll get there. And the way he sets the scene, it goes beyond the details of scenery, and I feel like that overall makes the series and makes the books. Characters aside, I feel that he could easily just write all these books describing scenery, and it would be just as enjoyable. He's just very talented in the way that he describes things. Music, like I said, sense, feelings, food, everything is just, it really, you can dive into this book and get lost very, very easily. And when it comes to the character building and development, I've mentioned previously that I find books, while there are many books out there that have character development, there's very few books that I have to say where I actually enjoy the character development. I feel like sometimes, authors can take it too far, or it happens too quickly, or the character is immensely different than they were from when you first met the character, and I don't really like that. So I do have to say that when it comes to character development, I am very critical, and I feel that George R.R. Martin really captures what good character development is. I can't give enough praise for that. He makes these situations that the characters that they're put in very realistic, and nothing any character does is neither good nor bad, because you want so bad to have a hero in these stories, and there's really no hero, because what they think is a good thing, and when they go and do something that they believe is a good thing, once you see it from another character's perspective, it's actually a bad thing. And I just love how he did it. There's so much gray area between what the characters, have to do and choose to do and what they feel like doing, and the situations that they're put in. It's incredible how he makes something seem good and then instantly seem bad. It's just amazing. And the character development is more of a slow progression, which again I feel really keeps the characters the same without changing them so much. But again, you can still see a bit of difference in them. There were plenty of times where somebody I didn't like at the beginning of the story ended up being somebody I loved by the end of the 5th book. That, oh my gosh, if something bad happened to them, I don't know what I'd do, but I hated them in the 1st book. So he puts a big importance on what's called perspective. And I think that's very important in these books. This series is by no means for the faint of heart, and my boyfriend actually laughed when he heard me say that, because he's like, oh, it's just a fictional series. But while I'm not saying that, it's by any means real, and, it's just the detail that he goes into, and those who are a little bit more empathetic, which I guess is a good word to use, are going to find this book a bit difficult to read, because George R.R. Martin has absolutely no problem with attacking issues like murder, rape, war, forcible marriages, just torture, anything like that. He has no problem getting on those subjects. In fact, he uses them rather often. I would say they're definitely key points in his stories. So I won't lie, there were a few parts where I did have to stop reading and kind of collect myself, because those parts do tend to happen when you're already immersed into the world, and then bam, there's something gory and terrible, and you just have to kind of collect yourself a little bit. Again, if you don't have a faint heart like my boyfriend, you don't have to worry about it. But there were some parts that kind of hit home to me, kind of hit my heart. I cried a little bit. It can be rough, and there's a lot of topics that are rather rough to handle. So that is something I do warn any future readers of George R.R. Martin's series. Overall, I think I would give his series at least a 4.5, if not a 5. Frankly, I have yet to kind of see any holes in the books. I know some people have found holes in the show, but in the books he kind of ties everything up. So a lot of people have found some holes in the show. However, in the books, they're different enough to kind of, tie in or tie up any loose ends, or at least, the minor loose ends. Obviously, since he hasn't finished the series, there's, some big loose ends that need to be tied up, but we won't get into that. I would definitely recommend it to anybody. George R.R. Martin really does, it shows that he did his research. Even though it is a fictional world, he did tie in some real life situations and real life problems that people in the medieval era did deal with. I'm not saying everything is. A lot of it is still fiction, but I mean, things that actually happened in our world's history back, during the medieval times, was he implemented into his book. And I think that's, again, what makes this world so easy to get lost in. Now I'm going to kind of move on to a little bit more of a discussion about it. And I had to look up some, good questions, because, again, there's so much to say about this book series that I kind of didn't know where to start. So I found a few questions that I'm just going to kind of ask myself, and we'll kind of go from there. And I'm going to start with, a pretty easy one. Is there a main character? And is this main character a hero? George R.R. Martin gives you the perspective from many characters in his books. And as I mentioned before, this definitely capitalizes on perspective. What one character does might seem like a great thing for that particular situation that that character is in, but then you turn the table and see it from the other side, and it's something terrible, and oh my god, what was this character thinking? So I have to say that he really did an excellent job moving from character to character. So there's several main characters, those that die, those that don't, those that survive, those that see, their family members die. You can't really get too attached to any of the characters in his stories because you never know when something bad's going to happen. And moving from that, I wouldn't say that there really is a hero. The only character that I can for sure say that might have been somewhat hero-esque would probably have been Ned Stark, and those who have read the books and seen the show know how long that lasted for him. The only reason why I even consider him hero-like is because his values he held, his honor he held so much higher than anybody else did. I felt like he was very conscious of his decisions. He was very conscious of the choices that he made. He was very conscious of everything that he did and knowing the consequences of his actions. And he always tried to do the best for not himself, but for the realm and his family and friends and the people in it, the people who had to live with the consequences. He made decisions on what the best situation or outcome of the situation could be. And I feel like that's the closest you can actually get to a hero in these stories, because everything that every character does is questionable, from one aspect to another. They're not perfect. They're regular people, and he paints a great picture showing that there are no heroes in this world. There are no bad guys. I mean, there's people who do bad things, and there's people who do good things, but neither of them are heroes and neither of them are villains. Yes, you're going to have characters that you hate, but you're also going to have characters that you love, and you know what? Halfway through the series, you're probably going to flip-flop on them. I personally hated Jaime Lannister when I first started the series, and now he's one of my favorite characters, and please, please, please don't kill him. I love him. Okay, like, that's just how I feel about him, but again, I hated him. To me, he was a villain, and halfway through, now he's one of my favorites. I just adore him. While staying on characters, George R.R. Martin is known for his strong female characters, and I 100% agree with that. While they do end up in situations that can show that they're weak, I don't really know how to explain it. I mean, in the time period that he's trying to describe, women don't have a lot of power. So to have these strong female characters really says a lot about him, and his writing abilities, because women are basically looked down upon. They're supposed to be in the kitchen, they're supposed to be cleaning, they're objects for men. And to have some of these women come out so powerful from all of that, and basically just brush these men off as if they're nothing, and, rule a kingdom, or raise dragons, fight wars, command people, it really just tells you, what women can be capable of, not just in this fictional world, but overall. I mean, I'm all for the strong woman, and I definitely feel that, readers can look to these women for strength, even though, fictional character aside, they, take what they can out of a situation, and instead of using it to make them feel bad, use it to make themselves better. So these, I definitely feel that, you can look towards these female characters and really, understand that instead of these bad things happening to them and they're dwelling on them and they're all depressed and, oh no, woe is me. No, they take these situations and they turn them into positive things, things that they can remember, that they strive to be better than they were. And while it is unfortunate that most of these things are, terrible incidences, that do basically cause the woman to be vulnerable, and taken advantage of, they use it in a way of sort of like a revenge or a vengeance kind of thing, that won't happen to me again, and I'm going to make sure of it. I'm going to be a strong woman so that way I can move past this and make sure it doesn't. If anything, I'll do it to someone else instead. So while it's not, the perfect way of getting over something, it's really something, to strive for, to take a bad experience and make it positive. And he really does that well with his female characters, and I feel like that's what makes them strong characters. One of the questions that I did find that I have to really, touch base on is, do you find it hard to remember how young the characters are? And I 100% have to say yes. He does make sure that ahead of time that these characters are dealing with these adult situations at very young ages. I believe Sansa Stark is only maybe 12 years old. And yet they're talking about marrying her off. They talk very openly about how she needs to have a child for the king, and what it means to be a woman and her place in the world. And that's a very, very adult topic that, she has to kind of face and deal with at only 12 years old. Now, to us, that's young. In actual, medieval times, not fictional medieval times, that is something that, young women did have to deal with. As soon as they got their periods, they were considered a woman, so they had to deal with these things. Robb Stark, I believe, was only 14 or 15 years old when his father died, and he basically led an army. He was, crowned king in the north. He was in charge of battles and charging in on his horse, leading these men to their death at 15 years old. And again, that's not something that's totally obnoxious or unheard of, because that is something that, was done, because, way back when, that was the prime time for men and women, whereas now we still see them as children. But it is definitely hard to remember that these children are young, or these characters are young, and they're children, or at least in the modern eyes that they're children. So, when you're reading the books, you do have to keep that in mind, that they're young, they don't know any better. So when they're making these decisions, you have to understand their perspective in that they're going to do what they want to do. So now I'm going to take a moment and kind of go back to what I said before about how George R.R. Martin, really creates a scene by describing every little bit that he can. And I found that he makes, let me say it this way. Online, as I was doing a little bit of background research for this discussion and video, the joke was made very often that George R.R. Martin describes food better than he does sex, which I found a little comical, because at least with the TV series, they really, highlight sex being a thing that you have to pay attention to, whereas George R.R. Martin really actually pays more attention to the food and how these people live in the different parts of the continent. And I feel that he's right. What you eat describes who you are in a sort of way. So I had to go ahead and get the book, or the cookbook, A Feast of Ice and Fire. I got both of them, the main one, and then I also got the Sands of Dorne one. And I read through all of the recipes, and what I liked best about those books was that they had the medieval recipes as well as the modernized recipes. So I had a lot of fun with this next part. I actually put together quite a few of the recipes. Nothing too extravagant, just some of the simpler ones that I kind of want to go over and show you and maybe even talk a little bit more about. But I'm going to go ahead and move us over to our table where we can take a look at some of the things that I made. So you're going to see a few things on here. What I have here is for north of the wall, we have the frozen blueberries and cream. So what I did was I essentially just picked up some fresh blueberries and put them in the freezer for about an hour. Ooh, they're cold. They did thaw a little bit. And I'm sorry, Josh, I kind of wanted to give you a frozen one because they were just absolutely excellent. They had the consistency of like ice cream. Do we have the spoon up here? I thought we had it somewhere. Yeah, the spoon. So I'm actually going to, normally we would put these in a bowl and drizzle the cream over it. But just to kind of show you that it is edible, we're going to do it. And it's like a sweet cream. Again, since it's, hold on. Since it's medieval, or the medieval recipe for it, I found that a lot of the flavors were a little bit more bland. Which is okay. They didn't have a lot of the stuff that we have to make things more flavorful. But as far as medieval recipe goes, I loved this. This was just egg whites, milk, sugar, honey, a little bit of salt. It makes it sweet. And thinking about the Night's Watch and the men of the Night's Watch sitting up in that giant ice wall eating frozen blueberries and cream, those poor souls, like if this is their dessert and they're freezing and they're eating frozen desserts, like I feel for them. But this is nice and refreshing to have on, you know, a hot day. Something nice to just, you know, pour it over. It is delicious. I really enjoyed eating it. The next thing I'm going to move to are, these are actually baked apples. They don't look like it. They actually kind of exploded and I did not expect them to do that. But they did. So they're not warm now, but it's essentially they're supposed to stay warmer. Again, I just cut an apple in half, cored it. They have the cinnamon sugar with a little bit of butter, and they're set up kind of like an applesauce. And again, a little bland, just a little, but still rather flavorful. Again, I would have definitely imagined that it tastes better warmed up. I did give my boyfriend one. He said that it definitely tasted pretty decent warmed up, but again, nothing too, bam, powerful. Very, very simple that I stuck with. Going to go ahead and move on here. These are peaches. They don't look like it, but they are, I promise. They're actually spiced peaches from, ooh, let me see if I can remember. I believe they're Dorn. Yes, Dorn. They're made with cumin and white pepper, white wine vinegar, and mint leaves. And then they're just baked in their juices, and they have quite a pungent smell to them, but in a good kind of way. Like if you need your nostrils cleared out, this is definitely, you know, sniff it. Again, it's supposed to be something that you have to eat warmer. I did try some while I was baking them, so I did get to try them warmer, and I actually found them really, really good. I actually might make this more often than not, but they are quite delicious. Very unique flavor. For those of you who don't know cumin is often used in Mexican recipes because they have a little bit of a kick to it. Usually when making taco meat or nachos, stuff like that. So it gives you a nice kick with that peppery kind of flavor. There is a little honey in it, so it does keep it sweet. And the peaches, of course, I got slightly unripened ones, so they stayed a little tart. They're really, really good. I highly recommend that you guys pick it up, try it. It's not difficult to make. Go at it 100%. We're going to go to King's Landing now, which means I'm going to bring Chacity in. She actually made this with me. This is a nice spring, summertime kind of drink. Chas, honey, do you remember what we did to make this?
We used lemons and oranges.
Do you remember how many lemons we used?
6.
6 lemons, and how many oranges?
2.
2, and how much sugar? A ton of sugar. Tons and tons of sugar. We mixed it up with some sparkling water because I thought that would taste a little bit better than plain water. Oh, can I open it here? So we're going to go ahead and give it a try. And this just shows that it's kid-friendly. No alcohol involved, even though Cersei does love her wine. And this is from King's Landing, but this is definitely, you know, a welcome bit to have. So, cheers, Chas. Perfect. It's so bubbly and tarty. I love it. Do you like it? Do you recommend it to the kids at home? Go ahead, tell them. Say yeah, thumbs up. I have to get another sip in there. It's very, very sweet, very, very tart. For those of you who know I'm a dental assistant, I would definitely recommend brushing your teeth after this, but it's very, very good. And that's the King's Landing kind of specialty. And I do have another drink that I don't think I'm going to put together. I might save it for when I go home instead because I don't feel like opening it. We'll see. This is a Riesling. It's another drink called honey sweetened wine. What you want to use is a semi-sweet white wine, and you're going to add just a little bit of honey to it, as well as some lime juice. So I might do it a little. Oh, I did. Where am I? My lime's over here. So you'll cut one of these into 3 wedges, and you'll squeeze the 3 wedges of lime juice into the wine. So maybe I'll make that in a little bit, but I'm going to move on to probably one of the more tasty treats, and that's sarcastic, of the story. In book 5, Daenerys is who is the queen of dragons, mother of dragons. They try to poison her, and they try to poison her with honey spiced locusts. So I went to the store and picked up some bugs, and I cooked them with some honey and paprika, which is honey spiced. Yep, you see, Chas? Gross, huh? Well, I did try one beforehand. They actually don't taste too terrible. They actually are kind of like candy. Flaky, kind of weird. They're not terrible. I really was a little worried to eat them. They're not bad. I mean, yes, they're bugs, but they're not bad. Actually, I don't, if you're looking to really, you know, show off to your friends or something, by all means, eat honey spiced. I mean, these aren't actually locusts. They're freeze-dried crickets. I couldn't find locusts. But the recipe said you could use either. You want to try one, Chas? No way. You sure? They're good. I'll eat another one. Oh. But they're really not terrible. But yeah, if you want to gross out your friends or just do something authentic, Game of Thrones, yeah, it's funny, right? Daddy's gonna eat one. I'll make them.
Yay!
Again, if you want to go authentic, this recipe is in the cookbook. And again, I mean, there's worse things on the planet that you can eat. And my parents always said bugs have lots of protein, so they never stopped us from eating them when we were little. So that's kind of my display of, you know, food from the 7 Kingdoms and Essos. All right, so I'm actually, I decided that I am going to make the honey sweetened wine. So it calls for 12 ounces of semi-sweet wine. I chose a Riesling. I like Rieslings. I went with Cavit. I've honestly never had this Riesling, so, you know, we're going to give it a try today and sweeten it with some honey and lime. 12 ounces is about 1.5 cups. So we're going to go with 1.5 cups. Oh boy, we're going to look like alcoholics today. There we go.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. But that's okay. It's for a recipe, so we're allowed to get away with it. And then 2 tablespoons of honey, which give me a little bit because that's going to take a little while. Now, I didn't bring a measuring cup with me, so I am just kind of eyeballing it. Bear with me. But 2 tablespoons is a good amount of honey. So we're going to squeeze a good amount of honey into the wine. We're trying this for the first time together. Almost done. There we go. I'm going to get honey all over your stuff, Josh. I'm sorry. Getting a little tired of waiting this way. I do a lot of cooking, so eyeballing is okay. So I would say we're about 1.5 now, and 2. All right. About. I could be wrong. By all means, guys, get a measuring cup and do it that way.
But you don't have a measuring cup.
We don't have one, so we're not going to use it today. All right, and we're just going to mix this together so that way everything incorporates nicely. I've honestly never mixed honey into wine before, so I don't know how well this is going to mix, but I mean, obviously it's in a recipe book, so it can't be that hard. It smells lovely. Oh, actually it mixed rather nicely. The honey dissolved very well. And then it called for 3 wedges of lime squeezed in. You can squeeze it in. Oh, can we cut this with a butter knife? Yes, we can. Remember how we talked about strong female characters? There we go. That was a bad joke. You can laugh. It's okay. All right, Chastity. That's 2 wedges. We need 3. Oh, there we go. Okay, it was a little harder last time. So we're going to hold it in a little bit and squeeze. Not a lot coming out of each of these wedges, but go ahead, my dear. You got it. Limes are not as easy to squeeze as lemons are.
I'm guessing that.
Perfect. All right. I'll do the last one, or you want to do it?
I'm gonna do it.
All right. Again, strong female characters right here. She's going to be a pro fruit squeezer at the end of today. All right. I'm going to do one more squeeze just to make sure we got everything. Gonna have nice sticky hands after this. All right.
I think this one has juice in it.
You think so? Here, we'll do another squeeze of this one too.
And I think this one. I think there's too much juice in this one.
All right. Apparently we missed a lot of juice. Okay, so this is our honey sweetened wine. Again, I believe this is another King's Landing drink. And of course, you can't have wine without a wine glass. Cheers. Oh, that's interesting. It's... Oh, I don't know. Hold on, I'm going to do something a little unprofessional here. Okay, so the reason why I did that, I wanted to taste the wine without the honey and the lime juice in it. And compared to the original wine, which is an excellent wine, I'm not saying that it's not, but with the honey and the lime juice in it, it really gives it a different twist. I guess that's a good word. It's not as dry. Not that the Riesling is that dry. It is a semi-dry, semi-sweet, but it takes away that bitterness, which is surprising because usually with limes, I feel like it enhances bitterness. I actually really like it. I'm definitely going to be making more of this at home. I have tons of honey, so this works. And again, you can, with as much lime juice as we put in, I feel like you should taste the lime a little bit more than you do, and you don't. Same thing with the honey. I feel like I put a lot of honey in, but I don't taste it as much as I thought I would. So it's actually, I really like it. It's really good. King's Landing drink, honey sweetened wine. Recommended. Highly recommended. So guys, this is my feast of ice and fire that I made here. You know, we'll be gorging on this a little bit. Lots of good stuff, including our honey spiced crickets. Yum. Guys, so that's everything that I have here today. I want everybody to remember that as you're reading and snacking on A Song of Ice and Fire, you need to remember when playing the Game of Thrones, you either win or you die. Guys, keep eating and keep reading. Bye-bye.